Calling all beings, y'all. Let's get it.
Put your hands together. Put your hands together.
Yeah, can I get an amen from the congregation? Where you at, Nathan?
Amen.
Amen. I'll tell you what, welcome back to Calling All Beings. I'm your host, DJ San Marco, on a fantabulous Tuesday night because my man finally decided to come on, talk to me, talk to our show. He's brilliant. Every one of you knows him. If you're in hashtag UFO Twitter, you have seen this brother breaking it down with Mataluni and Sweet Lou with the great hair. And so I don't know what you come to do, but I'd rather be squidding. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Thanks, DJ. Love the hair too, by the way.
Yes. Yeah. Lou Jimenez, where you at, brother? Man, where's you? I want to know the secret. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to try. We're going to talk to Rather. We realize that he is imperiled. His very freedom is at stake to give away your hair care products, secrets. But this is really what we want to. It's the purpose of this podcast.
It's the whole purpose.
But we'll
of the
talk
show.
UFOs anyway. All right.
Yeah,
So the most fascinating topic on planet Earth. So yeah, he's right there. Bring this man to the forefront, man. Get the good looking guys. There we go. Talking, man. That's what's up, man. Look at this man. He don't need a wig.
No wig required. That's right.
Yeah, maybe this is one. Who knows?
Absolutely.
What is going on, brother?
Great to have you with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this discussion. I think it'll be a good time. I've been chatting with DJ for a while now, and glad we could finally connect.
DJ knows everyone. He is. I just go about my day, and I get a text from DJ or a voice message. He's like, "I just talked to so and so." I'm like, "How do you talk to all these people? How do they know you?" And he's everybody knows DJ, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, the worst they can say is, "No, I don't want to be on," and I'll be like, "Oh, I'm so sad." On to the next. So
lots of people to talk to.
So
super excited to have you with us today. For those who don't know you, Rather, you've been creating content for a little over a year now, I think about a year. And as I've been brushing up on your content, I've been going through your channel and just, really digesting everything. But you cover so much material.
Your stuff.
You cover. I mean, I looked at, you talking ball lightning, time crystals, fast walkers, metamaterials. You explore the influence of technology that the phenomenon may have on us. And one thing that I really want to get into as we kind of get into the show is the Laplace's demon. So I hope we can touch on that a little bit. I really enjoyed that episode a lot. But really, what got you into this topic? Like, how did you get started? Why did you decide to create content? Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah. Thanks, Nathan. So, I've been interested in sci-fi and UFOs kind of all my life, right? Like many other people, I imagine. It really wasn't until 2017 with the New York Times article that I really started taking it seriously and going beyond the isn't that a fun rabbit hole to go down with kind of keeping in mind that's probably not true. And after 2017, it kind of seemed like, wow, there really is something there, right? There's some unknowns out there that are yet to be discovered. And after that 2017 article broke, I was on pins and needles every day looking for the follow-up, right? The article says that there's recovered materials that they have stored in a locker somewhere. And so, I was waiting for, days turned into weeks, turned into months, turned into years. And, we don't really have any significant follow-up. I started doing some research of my own. I found some debunkers of the videos that were out there that kind of, further challenged my thinking. Now there's some question about the validity of this evidence, yet there's still the government doing a completely 180 on what they've historically said. So it's just such an interesting story. And no matter what your take on it, if you're a believer or a skeptic, it's just something weird is going on in this area, right? So I
absolutely,
started beginning of the quarantine, I was, kind of in my house with nowhere to go. And I think like a lot of other people started down the quarantine content creation path, and
right.
started putting some videos out on YouTube, and just found that a lot really pretty fun. It's a lot to learn just in regards of the topic at hand, the UFO topic, and then there's so much other things to learn, like video production and recording and all that.
Done.
There's a lot that goes with it, and I've been having a fun time. I've kind of what I look for content. I'm kind of looking at the scientific articles. I spend a lot of time on the Reddit and the science news channels there, and I try to take scientific topics and go a little bit one step further than the legitimate scientists might want to take it. And I've been having a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, no, I love that. And one thing that I think, at least for me personally, that I've discovered with this is that because we don't maybe live in a world where you can just kind of walk down the street and have a chat at the local pub or bar or whatever on this topic, this space is sort of subbing in for that. So I think YouTube and podcasting, generally are filling sort of a space that has traditionally been filled by the public square. And so where sometimes people look at podcasting or YouTubing in a very kind of like through the lens of marketing or through the lens of content consumption, I look at more of this is just a different way to elevate and engage in conversation on important topics and subjects.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, because that's the one thing that has been missing from my life is that I try to talk to my friends in real life, and it's me educating them on the topic. There's no real back and forth like we have here on YouTube.
Exactly. Yeah. And I come at this too from the perspective of a video game player. And I don't know if, you're into video games at all, but I've been playing video games for a long time. And, back, gosh, at the early days of internet gaming, for me to find players that I wanted to play with, not just, teenagers who just learned the worst words they could say on the internet, I basically had to go out, find those players and develop a community to play with them. And so that's really how I look at this space as well, is that, we as creators and as engagers, so for the longest time, I was just more of a consumer, not a creator. I'm just a new creator. But this was a way for me to kind of build the community that I wanted, to build the space where I want that discussion to be had and to elevate this conversation. And I don't know if you kind of think of it in the same way, or if you think about it, or how you think where we're going to take this from that place.
Yeah, that's I agree about the community building. I would like it to be more widespread, where you could go down to the coffee shop and discuss this topic without getting sideways glances. But yeah. And when I was kind of doing my own thing, rather be Squidding, putting videos out there to YouTube, I was pretty shocked actually that anyone was watching or anything. But there was a little community building, which I thought was pretty darn cool. A lot of like-minded people having engaging conversations in the comments. I think it was when I started kind of joining board shifts with Luis Jimenez and the UCR is when I really felt even more connected to the community, and I felt that's just really cool to have so many people together thinking the same things and advancing the topic. Yeah, I'm not sure where it will go for your question.
That's actually where my question is how you hooked up with those guys. But before I ask that, I want to tell you guys something. And by the way, I had to leave because my dogs are even more excited about Rather than I am, so I had to close the door. They love Rather be Squidding. This is not my real hair.
Exactly.
So, okay. So
spoiler alert.
Yes, this is not my real hair. This was meant to make Luis jealous. But I'll tell you what, I'm comfortable now. I'm going to come out. I'm going to be me. Okay.
Be brave. Be brave. There we go.
Good.
Beautiful.
With or without, DJ.
Beautiful. Yes.
Thank you, guys. This is a big moment for me. Forgot to bring tissues again. All right. Hi, Luis. All right. So, how did you meet these gentlemen? Was this something where you reach out to them, they reach out to you? How did this come about?
Yeah, I wasn't really aware of them until the first Big Phone Home, which I saw a post on Reddit and I watched the whole day of it and saw a lot of awesome content creators. That really helped me engage with the whole UFO Twitter community and a lot of other content creators that I wasn't aware of. And after that, I started watching the show, and pretty much whenever I think we'll be discussing this person later, but whenever a certain name came up. And people would get really mad at him, I would, chime there in the comments, say, no, I think that he's providing a valuable aspect, he's providing value here, and ended up calling into the show, defending him a couple times, and we just kind of clicked, and ended up coming on, doing some more impromptu appearances like that, and eventually I started doing the intros, and now I'm there pretty much all the time. So,
You are.
fun place to be.
And by the way, Lou Elizondo also said about the need for Mick the other day. So, I mean, he's got a lot of defenders. So later on, I'll kind of give you my points. But more importantly, you talked about being at the corner bar and being able to talk about this. And I talked about it to my yoga class tonight. Shout out to yoga teachers out there. And we spoke a little bit about it. We spoke about Anjali. They're kind of tracking on that. And we spoke about House resolution. But something happened this past weekend at the behest of Nathan. He said, he was pretty amazed with Chris Lato's resume and what he explained that on Andy's show that it took to do to get to the level of pilot that he is. And I come from the special operations community. It's totally different. We go to school as a group of 7, 2 pilots, a navigator, an EWO. Basically, they're both navigators. One is kind of like a subset. And then 2 load masters and 1 flight engineer. So you all go to classes together. You'll split off for specialty stuff, but you all learn a little about one another's job. So when you're on the airplane, you are cross-trained to some degree in the other person's job. But you're not a single seater like Chris Lato was. All he had to depend on was him. So that's unique about the fighter pilot community. But I called this retired colonel. This guy retired this year. He's very young looking. He's very young sounding. He's flying for FedEx. And I called him and said, Troy, my partner Nathan wants to have you on the show. And I want to, along with an F-16 guy. So we're going to talk about the differences about you as a special operations command pilot and a fighter pilot, 2 totally different things. And I said, but I want to warn you, we're going to talk UFOs, okay? And that was like a huge step for me to be able to do that. And him not go, DJ, it's good talking to you.
It's breaking
take
up.
Care. Yeah. Like literally we talked for, I would say, I didn't track it, but over an hour. We spoke about the whole topic, about Lou, about everything. And
is he willing to go on the record?
Yeah. Oh, he's going to come on the show.
Oh, wow.
He's going to come on the show, and he's new. So when Nathan asked him a question, he's not been to all these different forums, and he's only read about Lou Elizondo, and some of them were hit pieces that he read. He has never heard him speak. I provided him with some interviews, 2 or 3 interviews, so on and so forth. But the point is that we would not have had that conversation. We talked about that. We would not have had that conversation active duty. And even now, it was like I was scared to bring it up. Because what if he said, like Nathan, you're breaking up, bro. It's good, good catching up, DJ. In fact, he was great. So we will have him on, and you guys will get to hear the difference between, first of all, what it takes to get to that level. And so when we're talking about, if we were talking quarterbacks, you have a Pop Warner kid that's in like 6th grade, and then you have Tom Brady. So the Pop Warner kid is like me and Mick as private pilots. And then you have Tom Brady. And so would those two have a dialogue about flight tactics or systems? So that kind of gives you an order, because you don't just become one of these guys. You have to, like, it changes your entire life from the moment you enter flight school. Your entire life is now that. So anyway.
Yeah.
So I've come out now. So
yeah. Well, I mean, but that makes me want to ask, it's just to segue off of that to you rather. And that's sort of, how does this, how are you seeing the discussion kind of bleed out from the confines of the fringe where it's traditionally been, and kind of bleed into the rest of the mainstream, with the effort that you've been a part of with the Big Phone Home? And what kind of impact are we seeing, and how do you see this continue to grow as this becomes more of a topic that we can talk about out in the open?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. It seems, from inside the community that it is snowballing and getting bigger and bigger. And there is definitely some evidence of that when you see the, congressional action that they, are following up on the UAP task force, and they're continuing to take action when they could so easily have gone the other way. Right. But at the same side, it doesn't seem like there's the massive explosion of public interest that I would think there is, right? Like
Sure.
we have these amazing things being said. We have, the UAP task force saying that there's unknown things in the air, and most of the public is, lackluster. Yeah, brushes it
Right.
off.
Get back to TikTok here. Yeah.
Have you come out though? Like, in other words, are you able to engage in dialogue with everyday people when you're out and about with it? Do you feel comfortable to do that?
Yeah. I mean, I do. I was telling a story the other day that I was got a haircut recently, and I told my haircut dresser, this was before Labor Day when we were going to do the big phone home coming up, what I was doing on Labor Day, and the kind of stifled the conversation, and she didn't have much to say to me after that. It kind of looked at me a little weird. So I think that there definitely is some stigma there, but it's a bizarre thing. I feel like most people haven't still been introduced to the latest developments, right?
Yeah.
Like when I talk about it in my peer groups, I mention it, and everyone's really interested, but I have to tell them about Elizondo. Like, no one knows who Elizondo is. No one knows what any of these developments are, but they're very interested when I tell them that this what has really been happening. So yeah, I don't really. I'm at a loss to explain the kind of disconnect there between the official progress that's being made and the still kind of public
the community that we're the bubble that we're in. I want to say I'm triggered by the fact that you said hairdresser, and I suspect so is Mataluni. Mike, I feel you, man. Okay, we're brothers, man. Okay, that aside, I'm curious on your thoughts on this topic, because I thought of it reading some UFO Twitter tweets where individuals get extremely conspiratorial about, they were talking about, they tweeted Dietrich, Alex Dietrich, our friend from VFA 41. So that's how the topic came up. And they were extremely, it's a government, it's a high level fake that's been engineered to make us think, and they're all in on it, meaning like Kevin Day and Alex and Gary, never mind the obvious PTSD that two individuals have experienced, one just seeing it on a radar scope, not even seeing it in real life, and the other one standing on the deck, seeing it through big eyes, and both of them have had a reaction. So, but my question to you, and that was a long-winded way to ask you, is this come from a place where we don't know what it is, and we don't feel safe with a potential danger out there that we don't know what it is? And if we can codify and say, well, obviously, it must be like a government thing, and that's what it is, so there's really nothing to worry about. Is that where that comes from in your mind, or is there a different explanation?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's partly because of what the government has given us, right? They've given us these insane claims, really, and then they've given us what they tell us is evidence that backs up those claims. But the evidence that they give us, I don't think really backs up those claims. So there's a little bit of a disconnect there. And I think that opens the room to people say, hey, I don't really believe that this is what you say it is. There's this other, although it is very convoluted, I can see that would actually be possible. So I'm going to assume that that's what happened.
Right.
And so I feel like, it's just kind of we need that definitive evidence where everyone can say, yeah, there's no possibility of this being an elaborate government ploy. This is verifiable things that are happening. And I believe that they are happening, but I don't think that it's, the evidence isn't 100% there to be definitively conclusive, in my opinion.
I'm not sure that exists because without them saying, okay, here's our geospatial satellite imagery and video where you can see it close up, and the Russians are going, oh, okay, I see. Yeah, that's how that. Okay, that's what they can see. So,
and I think that maybe this whole, since 2017, it is kind of a regression to the mean, right? Like, I think that the time between the Condon report and 2017 were kind of an aberration in our understanding of the UFO, phenomenon.
Trust.
And that was
broken trust, right?
Yeah,
a lot of broken trust. Absolutely.
We're re-leveling, essentially. We're bringing back up to where we were before. We're picking that conversation back up from where it kind of got dropped decades ago, and now we're kind of trying to roll it forward. And what surprises me is the degree to which, I think you're alluding to this, the degree to which the government seems comfortable allowing this sort of space of speculation to fill the vacuum of information that they have that is present. It would be much easier for them to just say, "Hey, we've looked at this. We looked at 144 sightings, and yeah, there's nothing to see here." Instead, instead they're like, "Well, we don't really know what all of them are except for one." And the reason we know that we don't know what they are, well, we can't tell you why we don't know what they are, but just take us at our word. And so fill in the blank with whatever pet theory you have as to like why we don't understand this. And we'll get back to you in maybe I don't know, a quarter, maybe in a year. Somebody's going to drag us kicking and screaming to tell you some more. But whatever. It's no big deal.
Rather's grandkids might know. Rather's grandkids might see that imagery.
It's very frustrating.
They're not just saying that we don't have the information. They're saying we have the information, but we can't show you. It's the most frustrating thing imaginable.
Yeah, right. I don't know what that imagery is that they have. Lou has pointed to that there's several. They don't do single source reporting. That there's several different sources that they've used in addition to, we've spent an enormous amount of money to train these people to get security clearances on them. In the case of probably Gary and Kevin probably have a TSSCI background to work the Spy One radar, in addition to some of those technicians, the E2 guys as well. So in the absence of and we've talked about this on Twitter, I think, just in us tweeting, being in the same chain, in the absence of absolute proof, you have some of the best people in the world at these specific jobs that have said, okay, this is what I saw. And that also corroborates with my Spy One phased array radar. Mm-hmm. And then what the E2 Hawkeye saw on their kind of more like air traffic control radar, what Sean saw with the big eyes, what Alex and Dave saw with Mark 1 eyeballs, as we call them. That's what we call VisObs. We call them Mark 1 eyeballs because NVGs would be like a Mark 3 or something. And then Chad Underwood. So when you put all those pieces together, you say, I've got something that I'm convinced, because I don't think all these people would lie to me. And they do have a little bit of video to back it up that they crunched the math on there. And I think Lou actually went into that when he was on Mick West's podcast. So, I mean, to me, it's very convincing in the absence of them showing us classified information.
Yeah. Well, I mean, doesn't this speak to the fact that I think of this in the way that I think about technology, so more broadly, right? So let's say that you have new technology that's incredibly expensive, incredibly advanced, and you have the early adopters or the people who you're going to distribute this technology to. It's not everyone. Not everyone can access that, and everyone should be accessing it, particularly if you're testing those kinds of platforms. So this is a concept that you can take to the military as well, that sensor technology, observational technology, as it has become more advanced, it has become the footprint of that use of technology has become much broader than it used to be. So instead of just a very small select few people being able to access sensor platforms that have such a high degree of fidelity, now you have a lot of people who have access to these platforms that are giving them great fidelity in our operating spaces. And so this is not something that you can just kind of brush to the side anymore, because you have a lot more eyeballs, quote unquote, looking at the issue, right? And so I think that you combine that with the fact that it benefits the government in some way. This is maybe just a pet theory, to to go along and discover this with the public, right? Oh, we're going to go on this journey together. Congress is coming along and we're showing them stuff, and we're all getting stuff, and we don't know much, but we're going to learn together on this journey, and we'll see where it takes us. I don't know, Rather, what do you think about that take?
Yeah. I mean, the JWT, the James Webb Space Telescope, is set to launch at the end of this year, and a lot of people think that might be the thing that is going to detect alien life, alien planets out there. So,
wow.
Yeah, I've had those thoughts too, that maybe this disclosure is trying to get ahead of the public discovery, right?
Right. Once it's broadcast to the world's eyeballs, you can't really hide it anymore, But
rather, when you look at it in the context of a more profound disclosure, And I want you to juxtapose that against, everybody stay home from work. There's a virus, and all of a sudden you can't go to the dollar store and buy toilet paper. So now let's juxtapose that against, okay, they've said that, no kidding, they've had all these alien contacts. People are like going, I can't even get dental floss. Next thing you know,
Sure.
bikini
chaos.
underwear. Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
I have so many questions.
It's there's such a range of possibilities here when you talk about what disclosure could be, right? And I'm more of the status that I think that it's probably going to be, the government might have more information about what's going on in the skies, but I don't think that they've recovered stuff and reverse engineered stuff and like have a handle on it, or I don't think that they're in contacts with government, alien societies or anything like that. And in lieu of any of that stuff, I think that disclosure isn't going to be that impactful for society, because presumably this has been going on right around us for forever, right? So it's
sure.
Wait, did you see that guy at the convenience store paying with toilet paper? He goes up with the toilet paper and he's ripping pieces off and paying for his energy drink and stuff. Come on.
Well, if there's any hint that the aliens have a timeline on our, we have 40 years left before the aliens come and invade, then I think that your toilet paper will be very valuable. But
so you don't think there'd be any more of a reaction than COVID had, in your opinion?
I don't know. I think that it'll be an exciting thing, but I don't think that it'll be a scary thing necessarily. But I could be very wrong about that. I thought the public would be clamoring for information in 2017 about all this. So I'm obviously not that in tune to the common person's. I
do think that we live in a little bit of a bubble, and I actually love this bubble. And you guys see me tweet about how much I love UFO Twitter and all the people that I've met and interacted with that, but for this topic, wouldn't have happened. So I like that. But yeah, I think you make a good point, because you would think, like, people haven't seen that 60 Minutes piece yet. Sure. It's like, oh my God, it was on 60 Minutes. I used to be appointment watching on Sunday night. Right. And now people are watching TikTok on Sunday night, or whatever, or YouTube. So
but I mean, if this is the aliens landing on the White House lawn, or the aliens actually having new interactions with us, then I agree that it would be society changing and crazy. But if it's just here are the actual photos of these things that we still haven't discovered, I think it'll be awesome. But
I'll tell you where I'm at, because it's not too far off of where you're at. I think this is just probability. I think they have recovered things. I don't think they've reversed engineered anything. I don't think there's anything that you would see flying, past Jazz Shaw's house with him standing there with his iPhone that we've reverse engineered. And that's based on a study of powered flight. And you guys have heard me say it a million times about how powered flight happens. And then what these are doing that is so extraordinarily different than what we've been taught, that the process of powered flight through Bernoulli's theorem, through Newton's laws of motion, etc. And those, I could apply those to several principles of how an airplane flies. And these things are just like, oh, piss on all that. We don't need any of that.
It's not even the same paradigm. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think they've, and Nathan, I'm going to have you go next on that. I think they have recovered stuff. I think Lockheed Martin or these contractors have material, but not an actual full craft or anything that approaches a full craft. If you've seen Bigelow Aerospace, you see that literally you can drive right up to the perimeter fence. But when you see Area 51, you have a place that, first of all, you can't even overfly it. Nathan's heard this. You can't, without the proper squawk and call sign, you can't even approach it without being intercepted by fighter squadrons out of Nellis. So if I wanted to hide something, anything, I would hide it there. And people would say, well, government can't keep secrets, so that's not a thing. And so then I respond to them, okay, what was the flight test programs where they were running at Area 51 last year? And you could bring anybody you want that you've ever had on UCR or Singularity Lab, ask them this question, they're going to say, I don't know. Okay, what was the 2018 flight programs that were running at Area 51? They're going to go, I don't know. And then I'm going to say, see, you don't know what's going on there. It's the perfect place that if there is something out west there, that's where it's going to be hiding.
Sure.
Because nobody can get to it, can't drive to it, can't fly to it, can't fly over it. Can't even take a good satellite photo because they're blinding you when you fly over top of the place.
Interesting.
Go ahead.
I'd love to be a fly on the wall there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
that's the place.
Well, I mean, what does our cosmology or our way of thinking about the universe here have to kind of catch up to what truth may be unfolding? It's kind of interesting, right? Because in human history, we've actually had a much more open cosmology to non-Earth based, intelligences, the gods and goddesses, the mythology that you see there. But we've drifted away from that to a scientism and a materialism, and we've kind of eschewed those things. And in some respects, maybe we're coming back around to this notion that we're not the center of the universe. We're not unique. We are probably kind of small, and there might be very intelligent, very more powerful things that are out there. We just haven't yet, stumbled across them yet. So maybe it's kind of, we're going through a reawakening of this awareness that is necessary, and to some degree, for us to be able to collectively focus on this topic again.
Yeah, I mean, it happens throughout human history, right? Where we think that we're the center of things, and we turned out we're not. I think that probably the next cosmological understanding we're going to have is that the universe here isn't a single universe, and we might not be, our universe might not be special. There's scientists who are saying that in 50, 100 years, we're literally going to be able to create new universes, create big bangs in our super particle accelerators.
Wow.
And if that is possible, then that kind of implies that it's been done before. Might be living in one of those universes, right? And
exactly. That already happened on Angels and Demons. I saw it, man.
Yeah, we're simulation hypothesis here a little bit in some respects, right?
It's already happened.
Yeah. I mean, it's a simulation is kind of an interesting thing. Some people think that it's like running in a computer, like an abstraction of reality. But it could literally be creating a new reality in a test tube, so to speak.
Right. That is scary, man. We can recreate. So you're saying we could recreate Earth with another Big Bang, but we don't know what state it would be in
a different dimension or a different universe. It would be enacted. It would be created from our universe, but exist in another place. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, exactly. You create it, and there's a little mini black hole, and beyond that event horizon, there's literally a new Big Bang. They theorize that black hole would vaporize instantly, so then the universe would be disconnected from ours. But maybe you could turn that black hole into a wormhole
and visit it somehow, or examine it, or take just like we take a microscope and we peer down into tiny objects. Maybe that's what we're seeing with UFOs. Maybe they are really like literal lenses that are being injected into our 3D space from a higher dimensional plane, and they just look like saucers, but they're really like examination lenses from another device.
Oh yeah, that's an interesting thought.
Is this the most fascinating aspect of the phenomenon for you? And if not, what is the one that really just like fascinating? Because I think you guys can figure out what it is for me, but for you, what's the most fascinating aspect of it?
Yeah, I feel like just the question of what is life, the origins of life, and what life means are kind of the the big questions. And are we alone, or if are there others? It seems like there should be others. Where are they? Right, kind of the Fermi paradox. I find those questions fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Are they here, or are they not from here, or both? Are they from here? Like, are they Earthlings but of a different race or different?
Yeah. I'm kind of partial to the von Neumann probe theory, where they're probably AI probes that are going to star systems and replicating and going off into other star systems and exponentially exploring the galaxy.
So are you okay with the theory about that when experiencers say they've taken my eggs, they've taken my semen or sperm or something, like, do you think that there is any race that is trying to create some sort of a hybrid being?
Yeah, that's when we go to abduction tales and stuff like that is where I start to really not. I don't know what to think, right? Like it's part of me. My I'll be honest. My inclination is that I tend not to totally believe stuff like that they happen as they happen. I don't believe that most of these people are telling lies, but I think that it's possible that there's conscious effects that are going on, and if it is a consciousness alteration, maybe that's there's definitely more to consciousness than we know, right? That's a huge unknown as well, and it's not clear if that's related at all to the ETs and the UFOs or not. And so I think there's just so many, and that's just the abduction tales and stuff that are things that are just purely consciousness based. There's so hard to nail that down and actually get evidence that you can confidently say this is what happened.
I just got a text from Anjali. She's wanting to know if you want to join the expedition. She's like, he's got to tell me his real name, but I want to prove it to this guy.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'd be a little scared to go into that cave with that group.
I would be scared too, but I'd go. Would you go? If you were invited,
I would go. Yeah, it would be
a curiosity, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that? Do you think that? Let's say I'll ask you two questions. I've asked Nathan this question. If you went and you actually encountered them, and let's say you didn't have the long 6-hour version that Anjali had, but let's say you had a meet and greet, basically, and a telepathic convo. Do you think you would be the same person when you got back to your house or apartment?
Honestly, I think that if that happened to me, it'd be. I don't even know if seeing would be believing for me. I saw the Stephen Cambrian Truth Seekers talk where they were talking about potential DMT doping. Like that. I would be. I would do a lot of go home. I wouldn't be the same person. I think to answer your question, I would go home and do a lot of soul searching to try to determine if that is all actually real. Even if I saw it, because that'd be a lot to take in.
Well, that's really interesting.
We find that a lot of it. So go ahead.
Sorry.
Well, we find that a lot of experiencers, I think, go through that very same thought process. That they're looking for anything they can find to discredit what they experienced, to place it firmly in the realm of psychological, some sort of conscious, aberration, as opposed to it being real. And I think what probably gets pretty disturbing. I mean, I'm not an experiencer myself. I can only assume, but once they are starting to hear those stories from other people, and there are some similarities to their story, I mean, that I would imagine becomes pretty earth-shattering. But you could even then still say, well, this is something unique about human biology, that there is something going on that triggers, just like a DMT trip may trigger similar experiences. An experience that I had, that they had as well.
The voice you're hearing right there is that of my co-host, the amazing @AWaveSoul, Nathan. You'll find him on Twitter. Our special guest tonight is the man known as Rather Be Squidding. And I, of course, am your beleaguered co-host, DJ San Marco, who is now hairless. I see you, Mike.
All your glory.
So, yeah, this is me. But rather, that was very interesting what you said. I don't know if that stimulated Nathan the way that it did me, but you said, if I saw it, I don't know if I'd believe it.
Yeah, I mean, optical illusions and just the brain plays tricks on you, right?
Touch. Yeah. And I say this because I projected. First of all, I would just do anything to be able to go on this mission, despite the fact that it might ruin. And my wife has actually cleared me to do this. I want to like bro handshake every single one of them that I encounter. Like as soon as I come in the room, just like say, can I approach you for a human gesture? This kind of thing. But would touch.
Yeah. I think maybe a touch and a selfie with all of them. I think, some sort of physical evidence to bring back.
You got to have an iPhone 12. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. Rather don't, can you be like, more postmodern than that? Jeez. Yeah. I touched it. That wasn't enough. I had to have a selfie.
Yeah, I mean, but it's true though. It's like
Yes.
some sort of
Additional data point.
independent, objective check on your own reality.
Okay. So you're saying that you think that there is a and it, do you think I haven't thought about the fact that if I did go out there, I would bring my own Camelback with both electrolyte filled pouch and water, because I wouldn't drink it at Wayne's house. Go, hey,
Drink the Kool-Aid, literally.
let's have a yeah. I mean, not that there be anything necessarily sinister, but I wouldn't be like, oh yeah, let's have a toast.
There could be natural chemicals in the water that that are causing some weird stuff. There's
it could be anything,
right?
but believe me, I've already mentally packed my backpack with enough hydration that I'm not going to need to accept any gifts from anybody. But I have thought about that.
You need your own oxygen supply too. Just you don't know what's in the air of that cave, right?
I'd rather be spelunking in this case. But no. That is really interesting though. So, but let's say you were lucid aware that Wayne hadn't given you that $10 bottle of Barefoot red table wine from Whole Foods, and you proceeded out there, let's say unnourished by anybody else, anything you didn't pack in. Would that shift the paradigm where you're like, okay, I trust myself right now?
It's hard for me to put myself in that hypothetical, right? Because it just seems so out there for me. But it reminds me of the funny show. I don't know if you've ever seen like Scare Tactics. It's a prank show where they set up elaborate things and they have they'll dress people up as aliens and stuff and have them jump out and scare them in these crazy situations that they engineer. And I would assume that, probably something like that, you could visually tell if it's real or not. But
right.
Yeah, I think it's, like telepathic communication and stuff like that. I guess if that happened, that would, I'm not saying I'd go there and see a bunch of stuff and then say, oh, that's all fake. But it would definitely challenge my whole belief system. I wouldn't know what to think, it would
which is okay. That's what we're here to do. But it's to challenge our belief systems. And I'm going to turn it over to Nathan, but I just want to say one more thing, because I did have a sighting. Andy McGrillen has had, I think, 2 sightings over in Scotland. And all I can tell you is, and I was only 14, so I wasn't trained observer DJ with flying hours. I was, been up in a helicopter and an airplane once in my life when I saw this. But what I want to tell you is, when you see it and you see it clearly and you kind of know what you're looking for, it. You're like, okay, I know it based on different characteristics. You just know it. Even if I, had never been to pilot license or flight school or any of that stuff. You just see it and you know it. And Andy saw that with his family, like a Ferris wheel looking spinning wheel thing that, right. Nathan,
that's
it
right,
came close to the ground. I mean, okay, what the is that? Nathan, I'm sorry. Go ahead, man.
No, it's crazy.
Man. When you see it, you'll know.
It obviously leaves a powerful imprint. You mentioned von Neumann probes, and I've absolutely entertained that idea. That seems like a plot, like based on how we would approach exploration of the cosmos. This makes a lot of sense to us and seems very practical. There's a book I'll sort of plug. If anybody likes science fiction, I'll plug this book. I think it touches on this topic and brings to light a lot of these experiences, but it's called The Bobaverse. And it's a very humorous kind of sci-fi, but the whole book, and it's like a trilogy, I want to say 3 or 4 books, but it's based on von Neumann probes and a human who basically becomes a simulated intelligence. He dies, vat in a brain. They transcribe that into a von Neumann probe, and he gets jettisoned into the universe. And you follow his journeys as he basically explores the cosmos. But in part of those explorations, and I'm going to insert a quick spoiler alert here, so if you haven't read it and want to read it, just block out the next couple of minutes. But one of the things that he does is he encounters other life forms, and I'm not giving too much away here, but he tries to essentially create, machines that look like those life forms so that he can have interactions with them so that he's not a human, sort of cyborg or whatever, or machine. He looks like one of them and can walk among them and have interactions with them. And they're not, they're none the wiser, right? But he does this with sort of a pre, like a, kind of a Stone Age civilization, and like is able to like give them a little bit of technology. And I mean, you think about this and you're like, oh, shit, this is exactly what's happening with us, right? I mean, you just don't know. It could be that very same thing, where, there is no distinction between, what we would call biology and what an advanced technology would be able to create.
Nathan, I want to plug a book too. I don't know. So I just want to show this. This book just came out. I was at the bookstore yesterday. It's written by a British guy. I heard that this one's really good. I haven't started it yet.
Okay?
Yeah,
I'd give it a look. I've heard good things. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so someone that's read it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I just want to put that out for everybody. I don't think it's UFO based, but I haven't really read it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I mean, do you see the ridiculousness that you signed up here for? Rather, I mean, Jimenez has dealt with it. He's dealt with it twice, man. So I mean, it's only once for you. Now we'll get Mataluni. We'll have the whole trio. We'll annoy you guys just once each.
But you think about you think about the Tic Tac, right? Let's segue to that encounter, and we've talked about this, DJ, but the sort of characteristics of the Tic Tac, in how it kind of mimics a little bit of the behavior of the fighter pilots in a way that is like kind of some like human gamesmanship. It's almost like, okay, like I know what you're doing. I'm going to come up and see you. You see me. Oh, you cool. You can do this. I can do that too. And then, boom, let me show you what I can really do. Ha ha ha. Now I'm over here at this place that you planned on being. How did I know this? Now these are like little games that it's playing with us. And you think about the stories of where John Keel talks about past encounters of creatures or aliens that are airships, and these are all very contextualized experiences that people recount that seem to change over time. And that to me lends to this idea that there is an intelligence, maybe an AI, maybe a higher intelligence, that's just kind of mimicking, like when it gets caught out, is mimicking to some degree the humans that are encountering it. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I get that kind of notion as well, right? Like, but it seems like it's not necessarily trying to engage and communicate with us, right? Which is weird, but it definitely does seem to be reactive. And so the Tic Tac encounter in particular, going to the cap point, which is hard to explain. But yeah, if you go with a von Neumann probe type explanation, maybe it is some sort of algorithm that it's detecting I guess they probably didn't have nukes on the jets, but maybe detecting some sort of radar signature and just trying to keep a minimum distance or something like that. And that's this is programming. I
actually had a discussion with Ryan. Help me out with his name.
Ryan Graves.
No, the playwright from New York. That has us somewhere in the skies.
Ryan Sprague,
yes. I had a little conversation with Ryan Sprague post his interview with Chris Lato, and we talked about that a little bit. And Lou actually pushes back on what Nathan's assertion is, but nobody knows. Nathan's hypothesis is as good as anybody's right now, as far as what kind of intelligence that craft is operating with, or whether it's merely mimicking. But here's a point that came up that Chris Lato discussed with Ryan Sprague. So we have jamming, that occurred, and you had the little bars they set on the side of their scope. They're doing this, indicating jamming. He pointed out that the telemetry on or the symbology on the screen indicated they had no ranging information, no azimuth, no altitude on that target. So their targeting radar, their at-flare, their targeting radar is confused. And what I find fascinating, Chris's hypothesis is that this could be, and again, his hypothesis is as good as anybody's at this point, could be that is a function of the propulsion system causing electromagnetic interference, that it is causing a jam. What I'll tell you what's interesting about this to me is if you take a World War II radar, you guys know that you would see little blips on a screen. You'd have some range readings on that screen. And so mathematically, if you saw it go between 5 miles and 10 miles and how many, stopwatch, you can calculate the speed of an object. So a lot of it was on the radar operator's experience and interpretation of the size of the return that he's getting, and then the behavior of that return, the speed of that return, if it's in a V formation with other, so okay, the Japanese are coming to Pearl Harbor, et cetera, right? That's what a radar operator did. Now we have what's called like SPCs, a signal processing computer. So that radar beam, that energy goes out, it hits an object, it comes back. So there's a receiver transmitter, so receive, transmit. And when it receives it, it processes that signal. And based on the algorithm and the computing, the logic of it, if you will, to use a even simpler term, it figures out, okay, this is what this is. And that's what displays all that information on their essay page. In this case, it was blank. It didn't give them ranging information. It didn't give them target azimuth. It didn't give them its velocity, all these sorts of information that they would get. And so it interpreted that as a jam. And that, to me, is really fascinating. And then, Chris goes on to talk about what emitters look like. Like Chris and I could look at any fighter aircraft, and if it had radar jamming, I know what I'm looking for on that aircraft, and I could say, there's their emitters. That's their radar jammers. This smooth object had none of that. So what is that? Was that them trying to jam us? Or was that just a function of their propulsion system interfering with our radar? Was that purposeful? I pose that to you guys.
Yeah, my hunch is that it's not purposeful, right? That it is probably just a side effect of whatever propulsion method it is, which kind of makes me a little bit alarmed when I do hear. I mean, I think it's a very interesting fact that's kind of emerged in the last couple of months, but it does concern me when I hear people say, "Oh, they're jamming our radars." That's a sign that they're aggressive, or
Okay, so let me take it a step further, Nathan, before you answer, because you can answer both. But okay, did it have the ability to jam the phased array radar, which is a totally different, working on a totally different frequency, and we don't know what that is, the Spy 1 radar? Did it have the ability to jam that and not jam it, or did it decide that radar sweep was not a threat? And go ahead, Nathan, you first, and then.
Well, and I'm maybe not as familiar with the technological differences, but my rudimentary understanding of the two different technologies are that the phased array is like a collection of think of them like little diodes or LEDs or whatever, but it's an array. So they use it for a reason of these sensors, saying that it shoots out all these frequencies, and then the frequencies come back and it processes that information. It's a very like broad-based sort of sensor platform, whereas when you're on the fighter jet, you're literally like pointing in a specific direction. It's a very targeted, as you said, it's an encoded frequency that bounces off targets, and as long as that code returns to the fighter in the same way that it came back with the same algorithmic structure, it knows that it's friend, not foe, or whatever. If it comes back distorted in any way, then that's how it knows this is enemy. So I tend to side with rather. I think this is probably just a byproduct of however that thing happens to operate. But I guess for me, all of this raises larger questions, which is, are these what does it mean? So I think it's a fascinating story, and I think the Nimitz is like the greatest story about how you can have this conversation in an intelligible way, in the public space. It's not just I saw this thing. It's like you've got trained people, you've got highly advanced platforms, you got a government several government people backing up this is anomalous. Like it's the perfect story to try to like bring this discussion out into the mainstream, right? And we also are hearing from several different people, different sources, that our pilots are encountering these things on a near daily basis, in certain fields of operation. So, but we're not told about those specific instances, like what, visual data we have or whatever, but we know that we understand that they are happening. And so for me, this frequency of interaction, it only makes me think that it's happening for a reason. There's some reason why this is increasing, and that's either like we now have the ability just to recognize, we're aware that they're around us, or that they literally are more around us than they were before. And but all of that to say is, what does it ultimately mean? And rather, where do you think this is going? Where do you think we're going to, I've heard Lou say, if you wanted something right away, you need to go take a hobby. It's going to be 5 years. I take that very seriously. I take that very seriously. That's from a man who knows way more than I do. So, where do we think we're going here with this topic?
He knows way more than any of us do, by the way, unless you're inside of a rogue special access program we don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But other than that, he knows more than anybody does that's in the public space.
Yeah, it's hard to say, right? Like I think that there's a strong possibility that the real answer is literally unknowable. Mm-hmm. Like if it is interdimensional beings or interdimensional entities, and they can go literally into our reality and out on a whim, how are we ever going to nail that down, right?
We're on their terms.
So that's kind of is my pessimistic side, that we might be studying these forever and never know. Yep. On the other end, I think that we might just be, one announcement away from a big revelation. Yeah. And I think like something like that might be, you talk about recovered materials. Mm-hmm. Kind of one of my favorite hypotheses is that they are Van Neumann probes, and they're collecting material and replicating themselves, but they go maybe into our oceans and collect a bunch of stuff, and they come out and they poop out the elements and the materials that they don't want, and those come down as liquid metal, and we see them in the air, occasionally dropping down, and it's like, what the hell? There's these orbs that are dropping liquid metal. And that's been reported in numerous, UFO encounters. Right. And we go and we pick up these metal blobs, and we think that they're have some crazy great, we're going to be able to reverse engineer this tech from it. And we end up studying alien poop for 70 years.
I love it. I love it.
But I think that even if we came clean with that, and
I love it.
If they came out of the labs and said, yeah, here's this chunk of metal, it fell from the sky, we can't figure out anything about it, that could happen tomorrow, and that would be revolutionary.
I think that's great.
Even though it wouldn't really tell us much.
Just like turning in your old beater car too, if you're not really crashing it, you're just like, I don't need this version of this probe anymore. I'm just going to leave it out in the desert. I mean, nobody lives out here. I'm just going to leave it out here, and I got the new model I'm using right now, so you guys can have it.
If Nathan's donating cars, I'm probably interested, but anyway, rather, if you would, I realize that you have protected your identity for a reason, but would you like to share like your background without giving away any classified information or anything about Lou's hair care products? I told you we were going to protect that, so we'll leave that
comes
alone.
Full circle.
Lou's hair care is off the table. I can't do anything there, but
all right, that's fair.
Secret.
That's fair.
Yep.
But yeah, I have a computer engineer. I have a master's in computer engineering, do computer programming. So that's part of the reason why I'm feel affinity with our buddy Vic West.
Yes.
I love it.
Hey, God bless the guy, man. The guy is really smart. So I'm not gonna. Okay, so all right. Do you want to do the Mick West now? Do you want to do it? Are you guys ready for that?
I mean, whatever you guys want. Yeah, I'm free till about 8.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to get Rat Rather's take on it. So I know where you stand, and I know when you get started, I got to block out 10 minutes to for you to. So I want to get Rather's take because I'm less familiar with Rather on it, and then I want you to weigh
give and take. But go ahead. Fine. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think Mick West is awesome. I love him. I can see how he's abrasive to the community, but I feel like he's almost like him and Metabunk are almost like an algorithm, an AI, where you can give them a set of videos or a set of evidence, and it will come back and say, here's a prosaic explanation for it. It's not necessarily going to tell you that prosaic explanation is right, but it's telling you that, we have more work to do. We haven't nailed it down. We haven't proved it definitively. Yeah. And I think that no matter what Mick's true beliefs on the subject are, I think that's a very valuable role that he plays.
I love that.
And I'm totally okay with that. Oh wow, I can see you guys better now. Put my glasses on. So I mean, I appreciate skepticism. I don't kind of like when someone like pees on my leg and said, "Oh, look, it's raining." So, from my standpoint, I got to hear Stephen Cambion and have a really, really good appreciation for someone who was intellectually honest, who approached it, who made assertions, and then was able to then say, you know what, I was wrong about that. And mea culpa, and actually do it with the person there. And then say, I wanted to check into your background because I didn't believe you. And I thought you were making things up. And I said that. And I was wrong. And the problem that I get from Mick West is he portrays himself as this very impartial, very scientific analyst of the topic. And in fact, I think there's significant evidence that he's not that. He is approaching this from a standpoint of not, hey, let's see what this is. Let's analyze everything that we have and let's come to a conclusion and then let's talk about it. He's approaching it from a standpoint of this can't be real. And whether or not I believe it's real, no one's going to know what he actually believes, just like you don't know what I believe and I don't know what you believe. But you just know what I tell you, and I know what you tell me. But he approaches it from, I am going, if Lou tells me when I interview Lou that he brought in electro-optical engineers, aeronautical engineers, I brought in aviators, I brought in all the experts. And by the way, this is not single source reporting that we're doing here. I was using a variety of different data that has not yet been shared with the public to come to the conclusion that it's this. And to that, Mick just says, oh, okay, Lou. All right, so let's talk about the Chilean Air Force.
Well, I agree with Mick 100% in that, because I feel that the appeal to authority has no place in this discussion. Or, I mean, maybe it has some place, but...
Well, then we're not having it. Then we don't have shows. There's no Tic Tac incident, and nobody's on podcast right now. If that's the case.
I mean, there is some
we're not
evidence,
having
right? Like that. Well, I'd say, I mean, there's two levels to it, right? Like I take all that information like you do, and I come to the same conclusions as you do that something real happened there. But when we're talking about, being able to say definitively that this was something from another dimension or another planet,
he didn't say that.
He
never said that. He never said that.
Yeah. Well, no. Yeah. True, but
that's the true but is that it's a parallax or it's a glare or it's at one point he said it was a bird. And then when they said, well, on link 16, everybody was seeing it. And on their IFF, everybody's seeing this and it's not a bird and it's not a bird. And then he has to say, okay, let's go to the parallax. So what I'm saying, intellectually honest, is to say, okay, you know what? I was proven wrong on that point. And okay. But instead he'll go, yes, but.
Well, so first of all, I think that Mick does admit when he's wrong. When you actually, break down to the actual specifics of the arguments and show that he's wrong, he will correct himself.
He hasn't. I've listened to the interviews with Lou, and he didn't do that in any of the cases that they talked about. And we just agreed that nobody has more information on the topic than he does.
Well, are you talking about like the Navy video specifically?
Yes.
Because so in that conversation with Lou, I think the issue is, Lou Elizondo was saying, yeah, we had all these people look at the data, the real data, the full data that Mick doesn't have, and they
none of us have.
With you, Mick, right?
Yes.
And Mick is saying, hey, okay, but based on the evidence I have these questions. Can you answer those questions for me? No, and Lou's saying, no, I can't answer the questions. All I can say is that I know the answer, right?
That's actually not what he said. What he did is he went on to the next topic. He digressed her and said, yes. And then he went on to the next topic. He never said, oh, okay. Oh, so you're saying that you brought in the actual aviators, you brought in the WIZZOs, you brought in the pilots, you brought in the radar operators, you brought in the electro-optical engineers, you brought in the aeronautical engineers, and you had a complete picture that includes maybe even geospatial data. And you came to, okay, so maybe something I don't know. But he never says that. He never, and that's the problem is it's intellectually dishonest to not acknowledge when someone tells you certain information that you don't have.
I would disagree that it's intellectually dishonest. I'd say that there's definitely a difference of Mick is definitely coming at it with a different set of assumptions than all of us, right? And I think Mick is kind of coming at it with, I can't believe anything that I can't independently verify.
Right.
And I think that that is a valid position to have, especially in an argument like this. It's not necessarily the position I have, but I think it's a valuable position for someone like Mick to have, and I'm glad that he's championing that position because we need that evidence. We need to know why the Wizos and all these other people think what they think.
I agree, and there are layers to this problem, right? There are layers to how we can get to the truthfulness of a claim, right? And so, in the court of law, for example, you can be in court and you can provide a pretty good set of evidence. It may not be everything that you want to see. If you've ever served on a jury, you know how this can be very frustrating. You're expecting to see all this great evidence, and you don't get much of anything. You get a little bit, and so but you have to make a decision, and based on some of that information, many of us can reasonably conclude that there's not a prosaic explanation, right? But to your point, and I think it's a great point, very valid point, that it depends on the standard, the threshold of evidence that you're going to require. And I think if the challenge we're going to have, and this is going to be true as the government, assuming the government opens up the doors a little bit more and lets more private citizens come into the conversation, private scientists come into the conversation and absorb and analyze this data that they have collected, we're still going to have issues of credibility and trust and how much information is enough to convince everyone else that this is in fact whatever it happens to be, and we
don't know what it is.
I know
that's
that
what he's saying is we don't know.
No, I know, and I understand that,
he's saying, I know it's a bird.
I agree.
He said F-18 was a bird, which is so beyond the realm of
you want him to be a little bit more public in issuing a caveat that maybe he doesn't have all the information, and until he does have all the information, that based on what he has right now, this is what he can claim it to be. And that's a position that he's sort of staking out. I personally don't think, I'm on that side of it, but I understand why I think I understand why he's holding that position. But
I do too, is because he wants to make money and have followers. That's the reason why he holds that position.
Well, I feel like, that sort of paints him with an ulterior motive that may not really be there. I don't know.
That's my assertion. Well, tell me what other guy is going to come on podcasts and critique an FAA pilot's, not only his flying, but his operation of his sensor system, which he did with Chris Lato. And what credentials does he have to do that?
I mean, I don't think you need any credentials to do that. Everyone is fallible, right?
100% wrong when you say that. I have absolutely zero place to criticize their flying of that aircraft and their operation of that sensor. And Mick is way less qualified than I am, and I'm not qualified. You don't have that. You have nothing to be able to say unless your title includes FA-18 instructor pilot, FA-18 flight examiner. In the absence of that.
Well, I think we can judge whether or not he's out over his.
Well, yeah, I just want to say, all due respect, I agree that, all these people have immense training, have done awesome things, and we owe them a debt of gratitude. But on the other hand, I think that we do them a disservice to say that they're, infallible and unquestionable, right?
Would not say that. I'm saying you, me, Mick, are not qualified based off this 41-second video to critique either his operation of the aircraft, which he did with Chris Lato, that he doesn't know how stupid he sounds when he does that. I know that he thinks he sounds smart to his followers when he says that. But if you ask Chris, when I bring Troy on, I even asked Troy this question the other day. I said, would you critique an F-18 guy? And he said, hell no. And they better not critique what we're doing, because they have absolutely no training, not only in what we're doing in our mission set, but in our systems and how we fly it. And Mick, off of that video, to say that, he just takes his credibility that he did have with me and he goes down again.
Right. Well, I mean, the Dunning-Kruger effect is very real, but it doesn't mean that if you fall prey to the Dunning-Kruger effect, that you're always wrong, right? So I think that in the case of Mick, you're correct 100% that he does not have the depth of expertise that any of these individuals have when it comes to those platforms, when it comes to operating those aircraft and what have you. He doesn't have that. I don't follow the guy a lot, but I'm assuming he's not saying that he is on par with their level of expertise. He knows enough.
Said he made mistakes in his flying and his operation of the system. He cannot make that you can't make that statement and have credibility. You can make that statement, but you can't retain credibility because
well, I mean, you're looking at a snippet of video, right? And Mick West is saying, here are the possibilities, and one of the possibilities is that the pilot is mistaken in what he said he was, what he was doing. And I think that I can see why you might, interpret that as disrespect and take offense to that. But I don't think that there's offense meant. And I think that that's you kind of have to do that, right? You have to look at all the possible possibilities.
But that, again, you say that, and I'm trying to explain to you what it's like to be inside the military flying community, that if I made one statement like what he just did, then my credibility with my teammates, somebody would say something analogous to sit down and shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. And I would literally like ball up like that. And you would never even go into you wouldn't see Dave Fravor come to a briefing room, our tactics briefing room at pre-brief, and stand up and say a word.
Right, but that's
I don't think that's a good culture.
No, but that's the culture, but it doesn't mean it's right, though, right?
No,
so I guess
I'm going to explain to you. He knows that he doesn't know, and I know from the AFSOC community, when it comes to the fighter world, I don't know. Mick doesn't know that he doesn't know.
I mean, but here's the other kind of point that I want to make is that none of these pilots know what they're seeing, right? Because it's literally an unidentified object.
What we're paying them for.
No, we're not. No, we're not. We're not paying them to go to find out what these unidentified objects are. We're not trying to train them to identify things that are from another planet or another dimension.
That's just it. You've actually made my point. Is we're paying them to identify aerial threats in the air and their capabilities versus ours. So when they see something that doesn't fit, just like the radar, we talked about how the RT, the signal processing, was confused by the signal that came back because they don't know it. And so when they look at it and say, that doesn't look like anything that I've ever seen. And I take not only his word for it, I've also got Kevin Day backing him up, and the E2 Hawkeye, and Gary Voorhees, and Chalk 2 with that gentleman, Chad. So that's a lot of people that don't know what they're doing, but Mick does. Mick knows.
Well, yeah, I think when you're talking about Mick critiquing Chad Underwood's flight, you're talking about him losing lock on that Nimitz video, right?
He has absolutely no place at all. And by the way, Dave Fouch gave away the whole thing, is that Mick engaged him to try to get the information on the Atfleer so that he could build arguments. And then Dave Fouch broke from Mick West because he knew that he was using him to make arguments against his own Navy family. And I got news for you. You can read the manual all day. I was a maintainer for 8 years on aircraft before I started flying. And I can tell you, I knew nothing until I started flying in operating systems in pressure, in combat, under pressure, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. And then there's a difference between understanding the capabilities of a machine on paper and extrapolating out what it can do, where its sort of weaknesses are, how it may misinterpret whatever it is, and actually operating the machine itself and having hours of machine operation under your belt, knowing what it is capable of. All that said, you could still be wrong, right? And I guess, like, for me, if I can take this conversation to a specific, if I can divert it to a little bit of a different place, and that is toward this, when I think you touched on this rather, and that's the issue of authority, right? So we live in a world right now where our willingness to appeal to authority is lower than it may have ever been, right? So our culture, at least in the U.S. and the West, we're less likely to agree, to what the state is saying to us. We're less likely to go along with that, and I don't think that's unique to us. I think this is happening, around the world. We're less likely to take the position, the word of our elected officials as gospel. And so where I'm struggling with that related to this topic more broadly is, as this if we want this to become more legitimized, if we want this to become something that we can talk about in the openly, where does the truth need to come from in order for us to collectively go, oh yeah, I mean, like it came from this guy, and it came from this person, and it came from the state as well. So all of these people are saying it. So now I can actually get along with it. If it just comes from, Congress or Lou Elizondo, like that's not going to be good enough. If it just comes from Mick West, that's not going to be good enough. What is the critical mass of people and voices that we need to be able to reach in order for this to be a legitimate topic of conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I think you make some good points. I think that if anyone just comes out and says something, I think that we're going to be in that predicament. I think if the government or anyone actually releases definitive evidence, is hard to know if that is even possible, right? So
right.
Yeah,
I mean, you're going to say, it's a deep state. It's a CGI fake. It's insert whatever you want to say. It's going to take a lot of evidence to convince people. And that, I mean, I guess for me, to answer my own question, it's sort of like, you're going to need a council of people that are trusted in different places in society. So you need scientists with great reputations, you need elected officials with great reputations of both political parties or many political parties. You're going to need entertainers, you're going to need theologians, you're going to need philosophers, you're going to need all these people. And
Kim
you got to
Kardashian.
You got to get them, get those influencers, y'all. You got to get them in a room.
Man, when LeBron says it's real, it's real, Holmes.
You got to get them in a room with something and walk them through this information and give them an experience and have them be able to validate it with their own eyes, their own ears, and then they can come and tell that story to the world.
Yeah, you mentioned your own eyes and own ears. I almost wonder if it's going to take. You hear Lou Elizondo refer to, there's a one sensor that can detect them, right? Like, maybe there is going to be some piece of technology that we can just look in the sky and we'll realize that they're here all along, and
just put a little lens in front of your binoculars and boom, there they are.
That might be what it takes, though, right? To have everyone literally believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I think I want to make sure I don't deify anybody. Not the pilots or the Navy or the government, but I think they are the de facto reason why we're all here. 50% of these podcasts right now would not exist were it not for what Elizondo, Mellon, all those guys getting that release, getting the government to say it's real. UCR doesn't exist. This show doesn't exist, at least in this format. I'd probably be talking MMA again. Etc. Half the shows on UFO Twitter don't exist. We exist because somebody that we all apply at least a significant, I don't want to put a number value on it, but a significant amount of credibility came out and said, we saw this. And we didn't see it with just Mark 1 eyeballs. And I'm just trusting Dave. There was the video from Chad. And also there was a testimony of Alex. Somebody, when she speaks, if she told me matzah was made out of, like shale stone, I would believe her. I mean, she just has an enormous amount of credibility. And then you go to, the other testimony, you put that all together and you go, there's an event that definitely happened here. They definitely saw something that nobody can figure out that is displaying characteristics that, to me, every time I think about it, it blows my mind, having gone through flight school and talked about this stuff with my colleagues for 20 some odd years. It just talking about it with Troy the other day blew my mind, because I had to explain to Troy what the hell Tic Tac was and what some of the numbers associated with it. 28,000 feet to 50 feet in less than a second. Omnidirectional thrust. We don't have anything that even has anything more than monodirectional thrust. And I happen to be aware of some of the systems weapon systems we're buying right now. So it blows my mind. So
it's literally almost unbelievable. Yeah, it's incredible.
It really is. It's an incredible event. So do I care what Mick says? No, I don't care if he ever believes it for the rest of his life, or if he came out tomorrow and said, I believe it all. I don't even think I would turn my head. I don't care what he thinks or what he believes. So
it will take a village, though. It'll take all of us, I think.
But I know. I mean, some people are waiting for him to say he believes it.
Yeah.
I don't really care about that. I think if we get bogged down in whether or not something's happening here, we're going to waste energy when we could be trying to figure out what you said, the interesting things you brought out about it's exhibiting human characteristics. Is that because they've studied us? Is that because that perhaps it has garnered some human intelligence and applied it to these drones that is apparently flying around? Some people hypothesize that they've created an environment inside it where it's not, where the acceleration doesn't make them go like us. I've told people all three of us would look like pizza sauce if you took the ladle of Domino's and slurried it against the wall. That would be you, me, and Rather. If we were in that thing and it accelerated like that. So there's so much to talk about the phenomenon without getting bogged down whether or not there something's here. I don't know what the hell it is. I don't know where it's from. Something's here. Let's talk about that rather than wasting time. Oh, I don't know. Maybe it's a parallax. I mean, it's like that's a waste time of that stupidity at this point.
Yeah. Well, and taking that, I mean, so Rather, I mean, what are some things that are on your radar that you are, queuing up for, future content? What are some areas that you're looking at and exploring that you feel are kind of maybe tangential to the phenomenon, or at least spark that same level of interest?
Yeah, I've been, one thing that's really interesting to me is gravity waves and gravity wave astronomy, which is kind of a pretty new field in science. We, have the LIGO and Virgo sensors that were, just built in the last decade or so that are literally detecting gravity waves from black hole mergers across the galaxy. And we have plans of putting another laser-based one in space, which would be a space-based gravitational observatory. And this is essentially like getting a new sense to explore the universe. Up until now, we've been only doing it visually, looking at stuff. Gravity waves are almost like sound in space. They're literally ripples that we can hear, essentially. And I think that there's going to be a lot of interesting things that we learn from those. We've already started. The observatories in space are these giant big ones. There's also tiny quantum level gravity wave detectors that detect ultra high frequency gravity waves.
Interesting.
And it's theorized that this would be a great communication method if you wanted to talk across the galaxy, because gravity waves literally go through everything. You can't block them out by dust or planets or anything.
Oh, wow.
Wait, Rather, will you confirm or deny right now that you work for SpaceX?
I do not, unfortunately.
Okay, different question. Another question. Will you confirm or deny that Elon Musk's order at Starbucks is a venti light roast caramel macchiato?
100% confirmed.
Okay. All right. See, I knew we were going to get there, Nathan. I knew we were going to get there. Rather is an engineer for SpaceX, and he's working on the very latest technologies.
Yeah, we're working on Von Neumann probes over there.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Hey, can you fix the autopilot, please, on the Tesla? I just want to divert your attention, because this is really all I'm working on before I drop down on the thing. So,
if only.
Love it. I really appreciate it, man. You don't have to tell us what you're doing. I think it's really cool. Nathan is also secret. In fact, his name may not even be Nathan.
I mean, you're making me question everything now. So.
Yeah, did you see it? Rather's I could see him and might not believe it. I might not believe it. There's Sherlock Holmes.
Skeptic even of myself.
I love it. I love it, man. Dude, for real, man. I don't know. Should we get in touch with? First of all, have you guys asked Anjali to come on the UCR or the Singularity Lab?
I don't think so. I'm not really. I don't. Not too involved in the booking of the guests, so I'm not sure. But I know that we have plans of doing a kind of an experiencer panel, and yeah, I think that I'd like to have her on.
Yeah.
Okay, and you would go on the expedition.
Yeah, sure.
If
I would.
invited.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Bring if you would bring 3 liters of liquid IV.
yeah.
Mixed with
Some great ideas from you. Yeah.
75% water.
Some oxygen too.
Yeah.
Nathan's worried. He's worried you're going to get gassed and like it's going to be like this Wizard of Oz phenomenon.
Everything's
Yeah,
on
no,
the
it's like Bubble Boy from Seinfeld. I think I might bring one of those along if I go.
There you go. Exactly.
That would be so cool. Rather, if you had like one of those things, like sort of like the space guys have with the mask and the oxygen coming up to it and a helmet. That would be so dope, man. Okay, would you bro shake if you met a being? Like the bro handshake, you know, you would?
If they weren't actively hostile to me, yeah, definitely.
Yes. Okay.
Well, if it's a mantid, though, do you just like cut yourself? I mean, I don't know. How does that work?
The mantis like 8 feet tall. I figured out like if you go and like
maybe a fist
shake
bump.
that thing, yeah, there's going to be a little bit of an anatomical issue there with where you might end up.
I talk a mean game, but I'd probably be curled up in the corner screaming for my mom.
I think Nathan, what are your thoughts? Okay, you're on the expedition. I'm sorry, that was going to be the last question. Nathan, if you're on the expedition, what's your plan? At least I know, you know, the plan doesn't last first contact with the enemy. I got that, but what's your plan?
Last in line is my plan. Just, you know,
the Ronnie James Dio. The last.
You guys tell me what you see up there.
You're hiding behind Anjali, like holding her shoulders and ducking your head.
I'd like to be second and last, just in case the person doesn't sneak up from me and grab me. That'll grab you, Nathan, and then I'll be back.
Okay, perfect. We'll be a team, rather. I like it.
Yes. So if I'm like standing at the edge of the chamber and
you're in front, you're the front of the line.
Shove me in the Rather's like shoving me in the back and I'm like falling forward, and maybe they do some sort of a maneuver. That'd be terrible, man. All right, so you would so Nathan, you're basically saying you'd be terrified and you would want to be at the back of that gaggle.
I want as many options as possible. That's what I'm saying.
Run for exit.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. All right. So you're the kind of guy, you don't have your back to the door at those Italian restaurants, kind of like Godfather asked. Okay. I guess this is the opportune moment to ask Rather. Okay. Rather, bucket list item is for me and your friend Luis Jimenez to do a few lines of The Godfather 2, the last scene with Michael and Fredo before Fredo goes on the ill-fated little ride in the motorboat. Where you know, basically he's telling Fredo, you're nothing to me anymore, and all this kind of thing, you know. So they have that last interaction before Fredo goes bye-bye. I want to read at least a couple lines of that scene with Luis Jimenez. Can you make that happen?
I think Lou would be happy to do that, more than happy.
He would do it?
I know Lou.
Oh my God, me with a real actor on this show reading lines with Lou Jimenez. That I'm serious. This is a bucket list item.
Wow.
And I'm going to play Fredo. He's Michael Corleone.
I'll do what I can to make this happen.
Okay. All right, brother. I think of like Make-A-Wish Foundation for like meat-headed retired Air Force guys who used to be in special ed. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, man. We really appreciate you coming, having fun, and sharing your views, man. It was a blast.
Yeah, I
really enjoyed it. Rather
enjoyed it. It was really fun.
All right, man. So we're going to be watching you. First of all, tell everybody where they can find your stuff. I think you're going to be on later tonight, right?
No, I got some video game matches later tonight that I got to check out for.
Nice. Now we're talking.
Tony Hawk.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. All right, so please tell everybody.
Yeah, at Squidding on Twitter and Rather Be Squidding on YouTube. Check me out.
Awesome.
That is awesome, man. Nathan, any final words to my man? Rather Be Squidding.
This guy is the real deal, folks. Check out his channel. He's got excellent content. We were just beyond honored to have you on the show, Rather, and we look forward to future conversations.
Yep.
Yeah, appreciate it. Anytime.
Yep. I'm starting my master's in hopes of being as smart as Rather like 2 years and change from now.
You're already there, DJ.
And I'm still not going to be as smart as him because the curriculum is going to be nowhere near like computer engineering. So thank you so much, man. Namaste. We really, really appreciate having you on, and I hope you enjoyed it half as much. Okay.
I did. Yeah. Thank you.
Rather be squidding, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks, y'all.
See you guys.